Hello, people. I'm going to do this short little video on Sammy Gravano. One of the problems that we're facing here in the mob genre is we have a lot of informants coming out. Uh, they're everywhere now. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it could be the popular ones like Mikey, Scars, and then you have the less popular ones like Jimmy Calandra. But they all have one thing in common, people. They exaggerate. What we have going on right now is people will say, "Oh, we need to hear history. That these people give us the history of the mob." No, they don't. They give their history of the mob. A majority of informants that get out and they lie. They lie to make themselves bigger, to make themselves seem like they were more than what they are. Perfect example: Gene Barillo. Gene Barillo, if you read his book and then read his 302s, a lot of things don't match up. So what I'm going to do is I'm starting a series here. It's going to be short little series on people, and I'm going to use their words against them. Now, we have Kane Shade, who does this. He does a very good job. He puts up shorts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do 15-minute segments on it. And we're going to start off with Sammy Gravano because Sammy Gravano, he's the head informant that is out now. Sammy Gravano has said the most things that could be easily proven to be lies, starting with Alan Kaiser and going on to John Gotti and his stint in prison with John Gotti. Okay, now if Sammy Gravano wants to come out and say, "Yeah, I'm pissed because he talked about me on the tapes, and I just said the hell with it. I wanted to get back at him, so I flipped." Okay, acceptable. It's not acceptable that you flipped, but it's acceptable. It's a more acceptable excuse than you're given, because you're given an excuse lately that you did not give for many years. And now I'm going to prove to you. You said, this is coming from Sammy Gravano's mouth, and this is what he's been saying on all his interviews lately. And Sammy does this. He twists his stories around. He says that while he was spent 11 months locked up with John, then John Gotti came to him and told him, "Sammy, I want you to take the fall." And now he's saying it. We haven't heard about this for years. It's only been recent in the last couple of years that he's been saying this. But this is what he does. He talks about things where he's changing history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a series here and use these guys, what they say against them, because it's not hard. It's not hard to find that a lot of things that Sammy Gravano says are lies. Now I'm going to show you a video. And it was the Diane Sawyer interview when Sammy was asked why he decided to flip. What moment was it? And people, I want you to hear this and remember, he said that the reason that he flipped is because John Gotti told him to take the fall. Okay, so let me put this up here. And I'll play this here, then we'll discuss it as soon as it's done.
After almost a year in prison, Gravano made the decision that would bring down John Gotti in a different way.
When did you decide to cooperate? What was the moment?
I decided that enough was enough. I made a list of people that we would have to kill so that there would be no retaliation. And the list consisted of his brother Jeannie, who I really like, his brother Pete. The thought of killing his son sickened me, to tell you the truth.
So you figured there were how many people you had?
About 10, 12, 14 people more. I looked at the list. I guess I looked at myself and I did some soul searching. I ripped the list up. I threw it down the bowl.
So you hear this, people. Right now he's saying that he was planning on hitting the whole entire Gotti family and anybody close to Gotti. That basically would be the whole Gotti clan, the whole entire part of the Gotti faction of the family. That's basically what he's saying. Excuse me for misplacing that word. But so he's talking about wiping out the whole faction, because Not just his family was behind John Gotti, but many soldiers were behind John Gotti. So that means he was talking about trying to kill 20, 30 people to take over. That's nonsense, people. We know that's nonsense. If he's saying it here, though, he's had so many stories for flipping. Let's go on to this so you can hear exactly why he said he originally flipped.
And I made arrangements to call and get in touch with the FBI.
We were very suspicious initially.
George Gabriel, one of the FBI agents who had arrested John Gotti, was there when Gravano agreed to turn, promising to tell everything about his 23 years in the mob.
We were actually looking for what the trap was here. Somebody was lulling us into, this was a John Gotti trick to deter us from the work we were doing to firm up our case and give us a sidetrack and a sideline. We didn't expect it. We didn't believe it initially until we started dealing with him and found out he was on the level.
This is the deal Gravano and the government worked out. Instead of life in prison, Gravano would get a maximum of 20 years in exchange for complete cooperation. Then Gravano made a surprising request. He wanted to stay 2 more weeks in prison with Gotti before his betrayal was revealed.
And they told me, what if you're killed? Walking out, I says, I guess then we don't have a deal.
Why did you want to go back?
Why did I want to go back? I wanted to tell my family on a visit that I was going to cooperate and leave. And I did that. Probably one of the hardest things I ever did. It was only my wife and my daughter, and both of them broke down crying and didn't want me to do it.
Afraid for you.
Afraid for me.
Okay, I had to turn that garbage off, people, because that's what it is, garbage. I wanted you to hear that for one reason. Now, he has said that the reason that he flipped on John Gotti was because John Gotti pretty much asked him to take the fall. Have you noticed that there he never said that one time? This is when the guy's fresh off, right? He's 5 years out now. 5 years. As soon as he comes out, within a couple months, he's on Diane Sawyer's doing the interview. And these are all you need to prove that these guys are liars. You know, there's a lot of things that Sammy says. You know, we can talk Alan Kaiser. He turned the whole story around from his original 302. And that's what they do. But see, the problem is that a lot of these people that aren't really understanding of the mob believe anything that these informants say. And this is why exactly they should not be believed. Are some of them telling the truth? Do some of them bring good information? Without a doubt. Maybe Mikey Scars brings good information. But Mikey Scars never makes excuses for why he ratted. He just comes out and says it. He was afraid of going to prison, and he's ashamed of himself. Sammy wants to still be the gangster. You know, lately he has a new pinky ring on. He talks about being the head of YouTube. He's the head man. He's even said this recently. And he's going to continue doing this. My advice to people is every time Sammy says something, question them. Or you could just be one of those type of people that don't question people and believe everything you hear. And that's what's wrong with our society now. We believe everything we hear and we don't research it. And Sammy 302s are out there. There's tons of stuff in those 302s. If you go match them up to the stuff that he said on his show, some of his stuff is pretty accurate. There's a lot of stuff that's not. And it's just sitting there. It's free and it's quick. You can check out what he says quickly. But people are lazy. The media, they want to believe everything he says. So they're going to listen to everything he says. John Gotti's dead. He can't defend himself. Ocasio, dead. He can't defend himself. So this guy could say whatever he wants. We need to remember who this man is. This man murdered his brother-in-law. And the only way the family found out about it was because of his 302 when he finally flipped. And think about this. There's two people close to Sammy. He was pretty close to his brother-in-law, even though he says he wasn't. Family functions, they were always together. And once the brother-in-law was killed, the family was upset, crying, always wondering what happened to him. Then Louis Melito's daughter went to Sammy and Sammy said, I'll help you find your father. But think about this. With both of those murders, he was on the scene. And in both of those murders, the bodies disappeared. They were cut up and they disappeared. Sammy even admits that his brother-in-law was cut into little pieces. This is the type of man that you're dealing with when you're dealing with Sammy Gravano. But people want to listen to everything he says as gospel, as mob gospel. You have people out here that claim to have great shows, to claim to do interviews, but they have Sammy on, they won't ask him a tough question. You know who you are. And they don't ask the most obvious questions. The question to Sammy would be, well, why didn't you say on Diane Sawyer that John Gotti told you to take the fall? Why couldn't you say that, Sammy? Sammy didn't say it back then because it's not true. It never happened. It's easy for him to do it now. Sammy has become a very wicked old man that says very wicked stuff to piss families off. We know that he despises the Gottis, but I don't know why he despises the Gottis. He's the one that ratted. Not only that, he ratted on his friends. So, we need to start calling these people out, especially Sammy Gravano people. Sammy Gravano's 78 years old, and every day he comes out, he tells more and more lies. His tales get taller. People seem to get dumber and believe him. So you guys can tell me what you think of this video. Let me know what you think. So I'm going to start a series here. I'm going to go against, with these informants, I'm going to find stuff that they say that contradicts what they're saying now. And I've seen a few of them. We're not going to get into the other people that I'm going to bring forward. But right now, I'm going to work on Sammy Gravano because this ain't the only thing that Sammy Gravano has a couple other things that's blatant lies. And I'm going to show them to you guys. And you guys decide. If you want to believe Sammy's history, just because you want to believe his history, go right ahead. But the mob is being demolished now by informants. And then you'll have these weak-minded people that will say things like, well, the informants are out here telling us what went on in the mob. No. Very few of these guys that are out there are low-level informants that weren't even near the mob. They were at barely touched the edge of the mob. They sat and they knew some mobsters. They did some crimes from mobsters. They pushed some money up to mobsters, real mobsters. But they weren't even associates. And we're letting people that weren't even associates change mob history along with guys like Sammy Gravano. And they're all guilty of it. It doesn't matter whether it's Michael Franzese. It doesn't matter who it is. I can honestly say, and don't get me wrong, Mikey Scars is not a good man. Mikey Scars put a lot of people away, more than Sammy. But he's the only one that doesn't seem to be changing history of the mob. He's actually given us good history. He's telling us how it was, how these guys were. While Sammy's making it look like he was the best. Sammy did everything right and everybody else did everything wrong. That's Sammy Gravano's, that's what he's selling you now. That's what he wants you to believe. He wants to go down as this gangster that was abused and neglected. And so he did the right thing. He wanted to be with his family, and he was a purely innocent man. He didn't kill a kid. He didn't chop his brother-in-law up. He didn't chop his best friend Louis Melito up. He didn't lie to Louis Melito's daughter's face. He didn't lie to so many people's faces when people disappeared. That's Sammy Gravano. And he has not changed. Just look at what he does and what he says now. With that, people, please hit the like if you like this video. Tell me underneath what you think. These are just my opinions. But this is fact, people. In this Diane Sawyer interview, he never said anything about John Gotti telling him to take the fall. End of story. It's not a story no more. It's been proven a lie. Take care.